Hello everyone, welcome to my WNC channel. How Bessent persuaded Trump not to fire Fed Chair Powell. According to people familiar with the situation, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently presented privately to President Trump his reasons for believing that Trump should not attempt to oust Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. According to these individuals, Bessent's reasons for avoiding a contentious disagreement regarding Powell's final 10 months as Fed Chair focused on a few themes: the potential effects on the economy and markets, the possibility that the Fed is already moving toward cutting interest rates later this year, and the likely political and legal obstacles that such a move would face. According to a person who is familiar with the situation, Bessent said that firing Powell was not necessary because the economy is doing well and the markets have responded positively to the president's policies. According to this person, Bessent also reminded Trump that Fed officials have indicated they may cut rates twice before the end of the year. The idea that the president might try to fire Powell has been around for a while, but it came back into the public eye this week. A senior White House official stated on Wednesday that Trump had indicated to GOP lawmakers at a recent meeting that he could soon move to fire Powell. Trump has repeatedly complained that the Fed needs to cut rates in order to reduce the costs associated with the federal debt. Later on Wednesday, Trump told reporters that he wasn't planning to do so. The episode briefly churned up financial markets. Many investors are of the opinion that attempting to replace officials at the central bank over policy disagreements could gradually reduce the central bank's independence, or its authority to take unpopular measures when they are necessary to keep inflation low. When the president publicly mused about the Fed leader's termination, the Wall Street Journal reported in April that Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick advised Trump against attempting to oust Powell. Bessent told Trump in the most recent episode that if he fired Powell before the end of his term, the Fed chair could sue, and that lawsuit could drag out into the spring, when Powell's term ends anyway. Even if Powell does not file a legal challenge, some of the president's advisors have acknowledged that any attempt to remove Powell could result in a prolonged leadership void due to the uncertainty surrounding whether the Senate, which is typically away from Washington in August, would swiftly confirm a replacement. The confirmation process for any successor could be stymied if Powell is fired because of the objections of several GOP senators. Under current law, the vice chair of the Fed acts in his or her absence. Biden appointed Vice Chair Philip Jefferson, who also supports Powell. These advisors have acknowledged that there is a risk of a lose-lose situation for Trump if there are practical and financial obstacles in the way of getting rid of Powell. The administration will bear the costs of negative market reactions without the benefit of having immediate influence over monetary policy. Bessent told the president that he is already well on his way to changing the Fed, despite the immediate challenges. Fed Governor Adriana Kugler's term ends in January. In May, Powell's term as chair ends. Trump will now have one or two open positions to fill early next year. Trump will nominate the best possible candidate to restore competence, confidence, and accountability at the Federal Reserve, according to a spokesperson for the White House. As administration officials set out a new line of attack by challenging Powell's oversight of the renovation of two historic buildings that will serve as its headquarters in Washington, Trump's renewed consideration of firing Powell came at the same time. The Fed has attributed the project's significant cost overruns to rising material costs and unexpected construction challenges. At least 3 Republicans on the Senate Banking Committee have stated that they do not believe the Fed chair can or should be fired, despite the fact that a few of Powell's adversaries in the Senate have called for his resignation. Similar concerns were voiced on Wednesday by Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who stated to Fox News, "I think the markets want an independent Federal Reserve." In contrast to other administration officials who have considered more aggressive strategies, Bessent's cautious approach stands out. On Tuesday, Trump stated to reporters that he finds Bessent to be soothing. Russell Vought, director of the budget at the White House, has been leading a campaign to put pressure on Powell regarding Fed construction cost overruns. This could lay the groundwork for a for-cause removal that circumvents legal safeguards. Trump recently appointed 3 advisors to a local planning commission, one of whom is directly affiliated with Vought. In 2021, that commission approved the Fed's design plans. Vought and these advisors have threatened to request a more in-depth audit of the Fed's financial and construction decisions. According to Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair, those advisors also requested a tour of the Fed's construction site, which the Fed offered on Friday evening. He requested a rescheduling for next week and